each other for a little while now, for a few years. We've never really connected too much. I know we've talked about it a couple times.
Yeah.
But I always kind of look at your stuff, I look at it, kind of a way, but I like it and do whatever. But I've definitely seen and with this last one, man, it was just like that. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely you're definitely coming together, and it's definitely really hitting.
3, 2, 1. What's going on, guys? Nico Santana here. Welcome back to the channel. This is another installment of the DIY series. I wanted to go ahead and interject real quick. Unfortunately, the audio that I took from our interview that I'm featuring here today, at least on my part, was not good. I didn't realize I didn't have my microphone hooked up the right way to the Zoom meeting and whatnot. I think I was a little bit more afraid of potentially having a Zoom bombing, if you will, during the middle of our interview. No, I'm just kidding. But that being said, I'm happy to be able to feature Erik Jackson on the channel. Great guy. I'll talk about him in a minute here once we actually roll the interview clip, but I just wanted to go ahead and preface it. I can't even speak, I'm sorry. That the beginning part of the interview, or at least the beginning snippet that you just saw, Erik was kind enough to talk about my latest project, El Colombiano. So if you haven't already checked it out, please go ahead and stream it. Link in the description below. Go ahead and add it to your Spotify. Follow me on Spotify. If you have Apple Music, go ahead and do the same there. And other than that, make sure to check out the entire interview. I'll be uploading, like I said, snippets of it here during the next couple weeks. Just a lot of great information if you're trying to be an artist yourself, or if you're interested in what it takes to really be an artist in some, I would say, non-traditional ways of being one. So go ahead and check it out. Also, make sure to check out that VIP discount link for DistroKid in the description below if you're looking to get started as an artist yourself, as an independent artist. There's no better time to do it than now. Today is the day. So go ahead and get signed up. Get that 7% off your yearly membership plan. Make sure to smash that like button, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Peace.
Okay, so we are sitting here. This is Nico Santana, by the way. Welcome back to the DIY Artist Series. We're sitting here with Mr. Erik Jackson himself. If you are not familiar with Erik Jackson, he's actually course director at none other than Full Sail University. But more importantly, this guy sounds like an entrepreneurial genius when it comes to music and his endeavors in the instrumental hip-hop, specifically instrumental hip-hop genre. He has his own record label, Nuages Records. He has a sample pack company, the PadPushers, and the larger brand, the larger company, which is the Jackson Creative Crew. We don't have an audience here, but if we did, I would say everybody welcome Mr. Erik Jackson.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
So, Erik, I wanted to go ahead and just start off in the right foot here, basically just getting a little bit more of an in-depth introduction on who you are as a person, and then going into the actual music game here. So, with the DIY series, as I explained offline, I'm trying to get artists who are basically beginners. Just some somewhat in-depth information, something to get them to that next level, right? But I think they should know who you are, where you come from, how you got to where you got.
I was born in Bangor, Maine. It was crazy. We moved down to Florida when I was about 7, but I was, thinking about this a lot because I do lectures every week for my class and at Full Sail, and a lot of stuff is just motivating. So I have to tell my story quite a bit. I like to tell my story because I think that I came from a place that we weren't back in the late 90s and early 2000s where we are now with information. You know what I mean? So I've always thought that I've always made music in my mind. My dad was always listening to just crazy music, from like French Cajun music to James Brown to, Catholic chants and different things like that. So I always had a weird perspective of music, but I would always think in my mind as a kid, like, how can I make this song better? And it's funny because I see my kids doing it now. They're kind of remixing music in their head and they're kind of beatboxing it a little bit. So I was huge into just music until we moved down here to Florida, and I saw some kids breakdancing.
Wow. With
a big boombox. So it was right around Christmas time, so I was taking some breakdance lessons from a guy up the street. I don't know if he knew what he was doing or not. I was probably 7 years old, I think, and back then it was still a lot of the electronic sounding kind of hip hop music, so it was still a lot of that stuff, and it was very positive, very party, and I loved it. I was like, man, this is great stuff. So for Christmas that year, my parents got me a record player and a turntable and a couple records. One was the Fat Boys' first record and the breaking soundtrack for that breakdancing movie that came out in like '84. And this was back then. So I I saw a commercial or something of it, and my parents knew that I was trying to breakdance, so they took me to see the movie.
Right.
And it just changed everything right there. I was like, man, people do this in real life. Like, this is real. Like, I'm doing this. So it just kind of, from there, I just kind of started doing little tape remixes. You know how people would do back in the days, listen to your song on the radio, and I'm like, I'm going to remix this and go from there. And from there, I'll, of course, always listening to records. I just turned 43. That's the first time I've said that. Just like last week or something. So that's the first time I've said that. So yeah, I was kind of in that era of music where there was still vinyl.
Right.
But the CDs and the tapes were there, but the CDs were starting to take over, and stuff. But so I still had vinyl, and I still got a lot of vinyl from like my grandfather and a lot from my dad and stuff like that. So I was always listening to records, always thinking like, man, I wish I could just take that part and do this. And of course, being a fan of hip hop, I would study the music. I would study the beats and stuff like that. And eventually, I wanted to DJ. So I joined the Army. I didn't have any money, so I joined the Army. That was just kind of.
What time was this? How old were you when you joined the Army?
I was 20 years old, I think, when I joined the Army. I was 20.
Okay.
And I had a daughter at that point already. I had a daughter when I was 17. And she was actually a huge blessing in my life, actually. And she stayed with me and of course, with my wife until, she's out living her life now, all grown up. But
just wanted to go ahead and add a little side note here. Eric did reach out to me and he said, this part kind of sounds like my wife and I had our daughter when I was 17, when in fact, basically it was from a previous relationship before he had met his wife. So I just wanted to go ahead and throw that in there. Also, Eric has an amazing sample pack collection. I just wanted to go ahead and add that and plug that in here for him as well. Link in the description below. PadPushers is the name of the company. I went through a couple of them. They sound amazing. So if you're a producer, go ahead and check them out. I believe he wants to go ahead and throw in a little discount. So I'll include that in the link in the description below for you guys. And once you're done with your creation, go ahead and upload it to DistroKid. Use that 7% discount right now. Go ahead and sign up. All right, let's get back into the interview.
Obviously, from your upbringing, you listen to a lot of different genres, right?
Yeah.
And from there, you decided to take what you like from these genres, specifically, obviously, with your heavy influence in hip hop, and you said, "Hey, I want to do something on my own." So, what was the decision that you made? When was that decision that you decided to say, not only do I want to be a spectator, but I want to be a creator? What really sparked that in you?
Ooh. And I think it was a weird journey in the 90s and kind of the mid to late 90s, right around the the late 90s, where I was on like this crazy hunt for good hip hop.
Okay.
Because around that time, to me, and I'm not the type of guy that says hip hop is dead or anything like that, but for mainstream hip hop at that time, I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't liking it anymore. It was all getting just way too much for me, and I don't know if it was my age at that time or just whatever, but I was kind of moving away from it, and I was like, man, I just want to find something like pure and good. So I started finding a lot of underground hip hop, and I was starting to see all these different people on different beat forums and stuff like that. So I ended up kind of just talking with these guys and these different DJs and stuff like that, and I figured out that I want to be a battle DJ. It was around the time I saw DJ Crush, Japanese DJ. I went into a record shop in downtown Orlando called The Vinyl Frontier. And I said, what do you guys have for hip hop? Like good underground hip hop. The guy was like, this is like electronic music, man. Go in the drum and bass section over there. There might be something. So I went over there and digging, and had a little record player over there, and I pulled out this record, DJ Crush. Everything was in Japanese. And I put the record down, and it was this just hip hop beat with like jazz instrumental over the top, a Japanese guy playing a saxophone. Yeah. And for whatever reason at that time, just seemed like the stars aligned. And I said, I want to do this. And he's an amazing like scratch DJ as well. He was like a pioneer of scratching. So I started following him and buying his records at that time because I wanted to scratch, do all these things. And then I started listening to his music. I'll start getting more to the point. Started listening to his music more. And then started finding instrumentals of like, Pete Rock and all these different types of producers that I liked. Yeah. I started finding just the instrumentals on vinyl because it was kind of the age in the 90s was kind of the age of the DJ at that time, Right. And a lot of stuff was becoming more available. So I started listening to all these instrumentals and saying, man, how do they get, what is that sound? Like, why does a Tribe Called Quest sound different than, I don't know, Fushnikins at that time? You know, it was a different type of production where this is more upbeat, but it was still hip hop. You know, it still sounded like hip hop. And then you have Dilla and all these other guys. Well, Dilla wasn't really popular at that time, but he was still doing some amazing work. Yeah. And you listen to all this different style of music, and I decided I want to start producing like this guy. So I started buying records from the Dollar Bin, traveling all through Central Florida. I've probably been to every garage sale and in the 90s and up to 2005 and all that, digging through bins and all that stuff at the dollar, you know, the thrift shops and all that stuff. And I started noticing even more, like, jazz sounds this way, rock sounds this way, soul sounds this way. Why do they sound this way? And I had no like music experience at that time, just being a fan and beatboxing and breakdancing and trying to scratch some records at that point. And it clicked in my mind. It said, it must be the chords that they're using. Duh. It must be like the way they're making their music. Because my dad had played a little guitar, so I'd kind of watched him, and somehow it clicked. I had a good buddy at the time, and he would always teach me how to dig records. So he would say, what you do is you look at the back of the record and you see all the instruments that all the people played back there on the vinyl from back then. And if you need a Rhodes or you're looking for a horn, and you look back, okay, there's a trumpet. And then you start realizing certain record labels, certain artists, certain musicians on the back of the record, they have great tones, they have great sounds, they, you know, open horns, tight drums. So you start figuring out like what to sample. And then from there, I started learning a little more about music by sampling, because I would sample jazz for this type of song and then go get the big rock record, you know, and get the big drum break for this type of more upbeat kind of a thing. My dad ended up getting me a guitar and a guitar book. And I'd never touched a guitar, just sat in the corner. So one day I pulled it out, I opened up that guitar book, and it was just like a bunch of simple chords. And I just started playing like real simple chords. And I said, man, I can really, like, I don't have to sample other people's music all the time. I can make it myself. But I guess the cool part about that was, and what I try to convey to a lot of people, especially in education and coming up in music, is I never had a formal education in music until I was an adult. I never had that until I already had a record out that went somewhere. You know what I mean? It was like Rainy Days was my first record my first album that like went somewhere that I had a lot of passion for. I'd done a lot of electronic music before, but it was almost template-based music. You know, it was just like, okay, because at that time, everybody wanted DJ's music to be very specific. You know, this kind of intro, then this, and then this. But I didn't want to do that. And the record label that I was with they were trying to stick me in all these different formats. And
so I'm glad you brought up the record label. So just to recap, so it sounds like you obviously were a fan. Yes. You didn't have any formal training. Mm-hmm. You started doing your research and you became a student of the game, which I think is important for everyone to understand. Is that you don't just hop on there like right away. You start studying the best of the best, right, in different genres. And I think that's something that I watched a documentary years ago. I think it was called The Art of Bars or something like that. And Kanye West at the time, when he was more of a producer than a rapper, talked about, he's like, I listen to all sorts of genres. And that captured me. I think I was like 18 or 19. So it sounds like you were investigating and kind of developing an ear for all these different genres, and then understanding how actually music works before you started crafting your own stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, okay. I did a lot of research, but I'll put it this way. I wasn't doing it like I'm doing research. Like, I have to do all this research.
You just loved it.
I just loved it. So I was going around my buddy, he lived down by UCF in Orlando, and I lived in Sanford. So he would hit me up and drive out here. Let's go around and dig for records. We'd go dig all day, spend all our money, come back, find 3 sounds, and you know, whatever. I could go on and on about that, but I would just listen to music. You know, a lot of that time when I was listening to these records and studying, I was in the Army. I joined the Army, and I was alone, and I was just listening to records, doing push-ups or doing whatever I was doing, you know, trying to relax. And I'd put on a Steve Miller record, and I remember I was just like listening to it. I listened to the whole album from front to back, like flipped it over and just laid on the floor and listened to it.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And I said, man, what an album this is.
That's awesome.
And that really gave me an appreciation for just being a fan of music, not just hip hop music or rock and roll music or electronic music, but music.
And I think that's important. That's very
important, especially these days, because all these micro genres and stuff are great and everything, but it almost just blends the music more. The more we try to break it down into micro and sub genres and stuff like that, the more it's just an overall thing, you know?
Yeah, no, that's true. So how did you end up getting signed? What was that process like, and how old were you?
When I had a turntable and a mixer, and I was creating beat tapes and, you know, different things like that. It's bad. I was such like a hustler. I had a job, of course, you know, and doing everything I was supposed to do, but I would go around with these mixtapes. I would make one like once a week, and I'd go around to these people at Subway, and everybody wanted my tapes, you know, around Sanford and some parts of Orlando where I was. So they were like, Eric, give me your tape for this week, and you come in and eat for free Subway all week, or you can come to the movies as much as you want. Just give me your mixtape. So I was doing that for a couple years, you know.
Wow.
Just DJing around and slowly trying to learn about music production.
Right.
I'll tell you about the record label one second. Let me just get to this point.
Yeah.
I went to a DJ battle in Orlando. And this was way, way back. And I met Guru from Gangstar. He was performing there.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I only know like one or two people that liked my opinion of like true hip hop at the, you know, underground, like real hip hop at that time. It wasn't all commercial marketed. And that was my mindset at that time.
Right.
You know, it was still kind of the early 2000s, and I was kind of still going against the grain a little bit, like, no, it's got to sound this way, you know, but, you know, of course we all grow. But hip hop has always been something I've been passionate about. So I've always wanted to at least do my part in trying to make sure it prospers in a productive manner, not in a negative manner. So,
sure.
And I have my own stories about that as well. But music-wise, went to this DJ battle thing, met a few guys that I'm still friends with today there.
Wow.
I didn't win any competition or anything, but I won like a raffle, and they gave me this software. What was this called? Sonic Foundry. It was called. That was the name of the company, not country. It was the name of the company, but it turned into like Acid Music and something else, some big audio editor. So anyway, I didn't have a computer at this time. This was still like 96 maybe. So my friend next door, he had a computer, just super computer, you know. So I'd always go over there, and I had these little floppies, and I would put stuff in there, you know. And I was doing edits on his stuff so I could come back and load them on my MPC to make music.
Okay.
So I ended up doing that whole process and creating like this real chopped up, horrible sounding album. And I was.
Was that your first album?
Yes, it was. Okay. I don't even have a copy of it anymore. I have to really dig around. Maybe somebody does. I have to ask around. But I was starting to give it out to these people, and I gave it to a few people. I gave it to a guy at a music store, Mars Music. It used to be in Orlando. Sam Ashes now.
Right.
And this guy, after a couple years, we ended up reconnecting, and he was like, Eric, are you still making music? I wanted to take some of your stuff and release it. I have a record label, me and my brother.
Okay.
And it was like a bigger it was like a house record label, but kind of they stretched it into like jazzy kind of house. And I was kind of getting into that stuff a little bit. It was kind of, I was trying to stretch my boundaries a little bit. So I was trying to get into that a little bit. And once I did a song with him on that label, it wasn't a major label, but it was a big electronic music label.
So you weren't shopping around like for labels at this point in time. You just kind of networking. I've
never done that. I've never shopped around for labels.
Okay.
And every time that I did like once, and it just kind of backfired on me. Like,
right.
And I've already been like doing this for a while. So it's not like I'm going to switch up my style to go to somebody else's record label. I'm like, no, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. But you know, it's all good. But I never shopped around. It was more like asked, and it was on a big platform. And, I was asked to do a remix. I was trying to still do like my own kind of hip hoppy, kind of implement some jazzy kind of horns and different stuff like that in there from vinyl, you know?
Okay.
So I was creating like jazzy house electronic music, but from vinyl. I guess I should have put that in there. I wasn't using all like the electronic music stuff. So I was still sampling from vinyl, layering on the MPC. So it was cool. It was really fun to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did a remix for this guy, and it kind of took off in the Beatport electronic music world.
Wow.
And I got on the charts there.
And this is early 2000s?
This was, yes, probably around, that was around mid-2000s, about 2004, 2005, about 2005, I think, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe 2005, 2006, 2005. So I got a little taste of what it was like on the Beatports chart. And to be honest, as a hungry young musician, that I've already been making music for 10 years at this point, you know.
How old are you at this point in time?
Man, maybe 28. 27, 28. So
27, 28.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't like 19 or anything like that.
Right. So you've been making music for 10 years, and this is really your first opportunity to...
That was my first like big, like, in my opinion, like it wasn't me putting something out myself or whatever the case was. It was like somebody, they're doing the art for me, they're mastering it, they're taking this production and doing something with it. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you said that, because, you know, especially for us, you know, whenever we're younger, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays with the whole notion of instant gratification, and you post something, you get a like, and that, you know, so on and so forth, people get so easily discouraged when they start something for, you know, they put something out, it's been a month, it's been a, you know, a couple weeks or what have you, and then they give it all up. You were grinding for 10 years before you really got a chance to be put on, you know?
I'll tell you, it's really, and really, I gotta like thank God for that, because I think there's different types of people. I've been realizing this a little through Lent. Like, for some people, it's easier to do certain things. They're just made a little bit differently, and I have that grace. I've had that grace that I've been able to stick with it. You know what I mean? So I count that as a blessing.
Yeah, that's a huge part. Perseverance. I mean, I think in any industry, if you look at it, it's really those who persevere the most, not necessarily that they're the most talented, with exceptions, of course, but those who persevere the most through all the obstacles that actually make it. So I'm glad you said that.
All right, so you made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching this very, very, in my opinion, very, very good interview. This is only 20 minutes of about an hour and a half conversation that Erik Jackson and myself had, catching up on his upbringing, how he got signed, what he thinks about personal branding, where he thinks the music industry and independent artists can go next. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and smash that like button. As you can see, I'm wearing the beanie. I did the bald fade here in the midst of quarantine, man. Hopefully I made my barber proud. But anyways, random side notes. So with that said, make sure to check out all of the links in the description below. That will include all of Erik Jackson's information, including his PadPushers sample pack. Go ahead and check that out. Again, a lot of really, really good samples in there. And please go ahead and check out my latest album, El Colombiano, available now on all your favorite streaming platforms, courtesy of DistroKid. Use that 7% off discount link in the description below. 7% off your yearly membership plan. They've been gracious enough to sponsor a couple of videos. This one's not sponsored by them necessarily, but at the same time, I want to go ahead and shout them out because they've been really, really key in me being able to showcase my music and grow as an artist and all that good stuff. So if you've made it to the end of the video and you've watched the entire thing, go ahead and comment bald fade in the comment section below. I want to see who actually makes it to the end. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out the full interview on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Nico Santana. Sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you'll get involved in a lot of really awesome and exclusive content, and you'll help support me as an artist. So again, with that said, for the last time, thank you for watching. Leave a legacy. Much love, Nico Santana.